beautiful Friday, and we get the chance to talk about something that is near and dear to all of us, and that is clinical trial participation, in particular by Black men and women, in particular for breast cancer. So do we want to do some introductions and then chat a little bit and summarize where we are with things?
Yeah. We had such a great show on Wednesday. We just felt it was really important to kind of follow up and answer some questions. And, so reach out to us in comments. We'll be checking the comments to see if you have questions, and we're here. So let's go. How about Sharon? Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sharon Rivera Sanchez. I'm here in Richmond, Virginia. And like I said the other night, I had participated in 2 clinical trials. And I'm here to encourage everyone, brothers and sisters, to get involved in clinical trials. Black data does matter.
Sheila, Breasty Sheila.
Hi, I'm Sheila McGlown, and I originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I live in Swansea, Illinois, and I encourage everyone. I've been in a clinical trial for 2 years, and I've been stable for 2 years, so I encourage anyone to ask their oncologist to have that patient-doctor relationship and ask them about clinical trials, and maybe you could get on one because they're very important, not only to the Black community, but also to research.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for being here with us again. I love you. Sophia.
Hello. My name is Sophia. I'm calling in from Olympia, Washington. So the other side of the country is most the other fabulous women on this call. I work at a company called Citizen, who is partnering with Touch, Tiger Lily, Morehouse, and these fabulous women to bring a tool and a technology that makes accessing clinical trials easier. I, while not a breast cancer breastie, am a patient and am a member of multiple clinical trials. They're not interventional, and Dr. Mo is going to talk more about different types of clinical trials, but I think it's so important to contribute to our understanding of disease and to make sure that we leave it a little easier for the people behind us. So really excited to be here and to talk all things clinical trials.
Awesome. Pixie Dust, Terry Lynn, my breastie.
Hello. Hi, I'm Terry Lynn. I am in Maryland, and I'm going to talk today about why our Black data matters and how you can help launch this project.
Awesome. So Dr. Mo, can you school us as you always do? We appreciate your brilliant knowledge. You're brilliant.
You are too kind, because there's so much for us to learn. I mean, it truly is. But we began on Wednesday night talking about clinical trials, and the data is abysmal regarding the participation of African Americans, of Blacks in clinical trials for cancer. So in the last 5 years, right, less than 5% of Black patients were involved in trials for 24 of 31 drugs approved since 2015. So let me say that again. Since 2015, there have been 31 drugs for cancer, not all breast, but just cancer in general, right? 31 new drugs that have been approved, right? And less than 5% of Black patients were involved in 24 out of those 31. So 5 we weren't involved in at all. But of the 24 that we were involved in, less than 5%. So if there's a trial that looks at 100 women, or let's say 1,000 women, how many of us were Black, right?
Wow.
And so the numbers are low, and we know this historically. And I've got this article here. It's a lovely article from Cancer Health. And, basically what they're saying and what we know to be true is that there is a disparity, particularly in cancer drug clinical research, and that there's a lot of different reasons why. And so the reasons that we all know, of course, there can be financial hurdles, there can be logistical challenges, as Sharon shared with us on Wednesday night. There's an inherent distrust of the medical system, but there are some other reasons. Clinical trials look for the healthiest of the sick many times. It depends on the type of trial we're talking about. If it's not for metastatic disease, many times they're looking for a certain category of patients who don't have some comorbidities, who don't have kidney failure, don't have hypertension, don't have diabetes, et cetera. And so we can also be disproportionately excluded from trials on the basis of our pre-existing health issues too. And so there are a lot of barriers to clinical trials, and I wanted us to talk more about those, but also talk about some of the opportunities and the promise and reimagining what clinical trials should look like for us as Black men and women, especially with respect to breast cancer. So I hope the conversation will lend itself to ideas, thoughts, solutions, and even from the people who are watching. You know, we want to get your questions, but we want your ideas, because it's really time to think outside of the box about how we're doing clinical trials in this country, because it's just not working. And Sophia, I think this is where you come in as well. You want to share a little bit with us at this time?
Sure thing. So, you know, all of the women on this call will tell you just how important your participation is. Unfortunately, the world doesn't make it very easy. It is asking a lot of people to coordinate getting themselves in the chair, as Sharon would say. And one of the first things you have to do is get all of your affairs in order when it comes to your medical records, your pathology reports, your scans, your surgical notes, genomic reports, having them all in a place so that you can send them to the principal investigators of these clinical trials so they can even determine if you're eligible. That process takes hours and hours. It's a nightmare. The amount of hours I have spent on hold listening to terrible music, being like, I have a life to live, why am I on hold, is insane. And so really what Ciitizen is doing is making that atrociously terrible process easy. Let us take care of it. We have very cool technology. I like to joke we've TurboTaxed getting your records. You click a couple of screens, verify your identity, tell us where to go get them, and we get everything. And I think this is another...
Like 5 minutes. I was blown away. It took me 5 minutes to do the whole thing. 5 minutes.
Right.
And all my stuff was in there in 2 weeks. And it was
Ricky,
great.
that's the time you would have spent navigating a phone tree at your hospital.
I wouldn't have phone in 5 minutes.
And not only do we get your records, we get all of them. And this is something a lot of people don't realize. Your health portal has about 7% of the data available about you. You know, it has your labs, maybe some prescriptions, but it doesn't have your chemo flow sheets. It doesn't have your pathology reports. It doesn't have the documents you need to go explore a clinical trial. And so we go and get everything. And when I say everything, our average user has over 10,000 pages of medical records. We put them all in one place and then create interactive dashboards to make it easy for you to search. It's 2020. Halfway through 2020, which is a little terrifying. I like to joke, we finally have Command Find. There's a search bar. You can search for a medication or a date or a procedure right in your records. You don't have to thumb through thousands of pages. So we're really here to make it easy, to give you a tool so that you can go explore these opportunities and these options. And it doesn't mean asking so much of you. Cancer and being sick is hard enough. If we can make that process just a little bit easier, that's a huge win. So.
Awesome. And it is really, really easy. I was blown away by it. And I had just gone through, before I signed up, signed up for Ciitizen myself, I had gone through with my friend Allison. You know, my friend Allison, you guys, she was really not feeling well. And she goes to Yale Medical Center. Like, she has really good doctors. And it was a nightmare. We were trying to get her into a trial at Sloan Kettering, and they had very specific requirements, which you guys fit the profile for all the, like, the specifications for these trial doctors. And it took us 3 weeks. And we knew what we were doing, you know what I mean? Like, but between the phone calls and being put on hold and knowing that you're calling the wrong department, no, you really need this, and getting everything lined up was crazy. And if you're not feeling well, and I helped her, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I had some sense about it. So if you're sick and you're not feeling well, it's just an arduous process. So to me, this is a godsend. I mean, when I moved from Atlanta to Maryland, I had to move all of my records here, and I had all different doctors. And so this is a great tool. I use mine every time I go to the doctor, because my doctors now use my Ciitizen profile to pull up my labs and stuff. It's a great thing. So, and the fact
that time is of the essence, you know? I mean, this is a thing. Like, you you don't have a whole lot of time to be calling and sitting on hold and waiting. And, you know, they're the weeks that tick by while you're waiting for pathology slides and blocks to get there, because they then have to analyze them. So what happens is many times once you get a sort of preliminary approval for a trial, you then have to get your pathology blocks, and the hospital has to send them to the other institution. They have to slice them, look at them under the microscope. Many times they have to verify certain things. There may be molecular testing that has to be done or redone, and all of that equals time. And
Right.
time is the one thing that we really,
Right.
you know, don't feel is on our side at the point that we have decided to participate in a clinical trial. And so, you know, if there are ways to help streamline that process, because even in institutions that are, let's say, community hospitals, where we don't have all of the resources and a navigator who can handhold with a patient and walk their data and their documents through every step of the way, because they've got to go navigate 5 other patients who are downstairs in imaging, and they have to make 4 other phone calls. And you know, so we're in places where the resources are stretched. Having a system in place for patients to be able to collate and access their records is a huge, huge benefit. And so it's something I think that, you know, while I know we are still contemplating all the ways in which we can use this data, having a system in place like this is really the evolution of what needs to happen for patients in order to give them their power back, in order to allow them to get into trials faster and to see what trials they're participating in as well.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to trial, you just want your data consolidated, you can still do that too. But also think about this. So there's so many fears about getting into a trial anyway, you guys. I mean, you guys are fearless. You guys are like badass fearless heroes. So, but you know, so many of us are afraid to do it. So when you're already afraid and then you have to do work to make it happen, you know, and you know, Sharon, you did a lot of work to make your trial happen, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, Sheila, you at least you had, you know, your doctor encouraged you and stuff. But if you have to do work, it's just not cool. It's not cool. It's not cool at all. So
and Ricky, you raise a really good point. You know, clinical trials, as important as they are, may not make sense for everyone right now. It's still important to have all these records, because down the line, should you need them, they're available at the, you can pull everything up right on your iPhone, on your computer, saying a click away should you need it. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't know is hospitals are only required to keep your records about 10. So for long-term survivors, destroyed, which is a really important part of your clinical history, not just for yourself, but for your family, understanding your hereditary risk. And so there is value also in just having them and controlling them, and not letting it be determined by a hospital administrator with arbitrary timelines.
Yeah. You know, that's good. That's really good to hear. So let's talk about too, because we talked about the other day a little bit about some of these barriers and the fears, like, you know, getting to the trial, which Sharon was flying across the country, driving 6 hours, whatever, right? But to me, like, I still think we need to understand to help people get over some of the other fears. So if you took the transportation and the logistics and childcare and taking it off and work off the table. So, you know, I think that's price of entry to do a trial. That if somebody wants you to participate or you want to participate, you shouldn't have to pay for it. We know that, we actually heard the other day too, you get better care, you get more attention. Sheila, you talked about how much more attention you get, but how can we convince people or help people understand that they should take that fear away? And, you know, clearly it's advancing not only your own situation as a patient, but helping our community learn more about each other. And frankly, to your point earlier, Sophia, Black women have a 39% recurrence rate of breast cancer. And that's pretty crazy, you know, 39%, it's like the highest by far. So I don't want to put an omen that it's going to come back, but at least, you know, if it does, we're prepared for it. But how do we get people to like not be afraid? Like,
see, I use that number, and I use my fear to take action. So if you that afraid, take action. As Sheila said, you definitely get better care. And I feel I'm more comfortable under Dr. care, where they are checking your labs. It's not, nothing's required to check your labs after you've been out of treatment, a year or two, let alone 5 years. But if you're in a clinical trial, you always have that check and balance. Nothing is, 100% proof, but you can act on that fear instead of trying to suppress it until it comes back, because it will continue to come back. So for me, I act on it.
Yeah.
So
make you feel better knowing you're prepared.
Right.
And I think too, once you're on a clinical trial, if you don't like it, my clinical trial coordinator always telling me you can get off of it. You don't have to stay on it. But, these, like I said, I've been on one for 2 years, and these are actually, it was fast tracked, the FDA, and now women, I'm part of a Facebook group, are using this drug in HER2, and saving lives. But I've been on it for 2 years, and, I've been stable for 2 years. So I'm hoping that, like Sharon was saying, that they see, and Ricky, that they see African-American women and say, okay, Sheila tried it, Sharon tried it, and we can encourage them to, hey, ask their doctor about clinical trials. Because I always say our doctors work for us.
Yeah.
And, sometimes African-American women aren't even asked to be on clinical trials. So it's up to us to continue to educate. Even in community hospitals, we need to go into, community hospital. The assumption for me, I often see is, okay, they assume that you go to a cancer center, but not everybody goes to a cancer center. They go to community hospitals or even a VA, but just to have that conversation about a clinical trial. Because when I was diagnosed, I didn't even know a clinical trial existed until, I started having, conversations with my doctor. And she was like, oh yeah, this is what it is. And she explained to me. So I think it's up to advocates and people like us to show, hey, clinical trials are okay. I know the medical mistrust, but these are life-saving drugs. And like I said, I get my eyes checked. I get my heart checked all the time. I get EKGs. It's like, it's a long process, but, hey, 2 years and I'm still going strong, so.
And looking back,
those glasses are bad.
My dollar
I want to touch on
glasses.
something you said. Sheila, I want to go back because you said something so important, which is that many patients will get their care at community hospitals. And the reality is that probably 70% of cancer care is done in community hospitals, right? And where are clinical trials typically done? Academic settings, right? So you've got patients who need to travel to the academic institutions and find and establish relationships and trust relationships, and then get offered a clinical trial, and then get into that clinical trial, and then get their care there. And there are a number of barriers there where, I'll give the example of myself. I started a cancer program at a community hospital because I wanted patients in that community to be able to get that care without going down to Emerald City. You should be able to get it in your communities. And so where's the opportunity for the community docs to participate in clinical trials of that nature? And they typically are somewhat excluded from many of the trials just by virtue of not being at the major academic hubs. And so I think that this conversation really does need to extend to what's happening at the community hospitals. What is industry doing to facilitate trials in those community settings? Because even in places where women have access to tertiary centers or to the NCI, National Cancer Institute designated centers. I'll give you an example of Boston. 4 out of 5 white women will go to Dana-Farber. 1 out of 5 Black women will go to Dana-Farber for their cancer care. And it's not because of distance. It's within a 10 to 15 mile radius. It is because they don't feel comfortable at Dana-Farber because either the environment, or they've had a bad experience in the ER, or their doctors are in their community and they want to get their care at the community hospitals where there are folks who look like them. And so there are still barriers even within proximity to access at these tertiary centers, and patients themselves will exclude themselves sometimes. And so I think that, things like real world data, which is part of the hope and the promise of Citizen, is that we would be able to collect data that is in real time. that is patient reported, that is not just, we're going to wait 10 years and see what happens. And we call that prospective data, meaning you got to wait and then you can look back 10 years and say, okay, this drug really did work over 10 years. We need to know how people are feeling now. We need to know how people are doing now. We need to know if their tumors are responding now, not 10 years from now. And I love the fact that COVID has really pushed that to the forefront because we don't have a lot of time to wait. So FDA is pushing new drugs through. There's new trials every day. Things are happening at the speed of light right now for this pandemic, for COVID-19, right? The same thing can happen for cancer. The very same thing can happen, and it doesn't all have to happen at Harvard.
That's true. And you know, I've talked to a couple of breasties who got into a trial. They were already afraid. And then they put them in a car, drove them an hour out of their neighborhood to the lily white doctor's office. They walk in, they don't see anybody that looks like them. And then somebody wants to stick something in their arm. I'm out. I'm going home. Thank you very much. I'm out of here, because they don't feel comfortable. So that comfort level is really important. I mean, I think if I had a lot of money, I would build clinical trials for Black people in every major city, like operations. So, because I think we need to have that comfort level and have a place we can go to where we see our other breasties or see other people that look like us and nurses that look like us and doctors that look like us. So that's a pipe dream that we can.
Well, and don't even get me started on the barriers to diversity in higher education and in academic practice that make it difficult for Black doctors and Black researchers to thrive and to get tenure and to get the grants and all the things, right? Like, this is not just Black women don't participate in clinical trials issue. This is a systemic and a pervasive issue. And this is what we mean when we say that there is systemic racism, you know, that there are barriers in healthcare that extend beyond the bedside. And so I think we have to look at, and it's up to doctors like me. It's up to corporations like Genentech and Citizen. And, you know, it's up to industry to shed a light on this and say, well, where are the Black doctors? Why aren't they at these centers? What are the barriers to them getting grants? How can we facilitate, you know, these researchers getting funding that they may have typically been denied because funding is granted on the basis of prior funding and prior publications, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have not gotten the prior publications and prior funding, how are you ever going to get your foot in the door?
Right.
And so the system is set up to reward those who are already rewarded. Them that's got, they get, and them that's not, they lose, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that system even has to change when we talk about clinical trials. And so I think that is some place where patients have power as well, as advocates, as breasties, as organizations. You can begin to make some noise about the lack of representation in the research community, in the medical community, because we're here, we are out here, but there are barriers to us even getting involved in a lot of the trials.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Mo, you mentioned a really important reality of the time we're living in. We have an opportunity to fast forward progress as a result of how COVID is disrupting basically every part of our lives, including how research is done, how treatment is administered. And so can you talk a little bit more around kind of the disruption COVID has had and kind of what's going on in the FDA, what's going on in terms of moving to digital telemedicine, and really how that creates a lot of opportunities both for real world research, so research done not in clinical trials, as well as clinical trials themselves, because I think it's really exciting. And it's, for me, a silver lining of this horrible pandemic we're living in.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's unfortunate in that we are so disconnected because of COVID, but it has forced us to connect in other ways. And so, you know, telemedicine will not be going anywhere. So a lot of the talks that I'm giving now are taught to patients how to optimize your telemedicine appointment, how to connect with your doctor, how to get your needs met if you're in a virtual setting, because the reality is in some places they are going back to virtual appointments. In some places, you know, their chemotherapy regimens and their surgeries are being postponed again because COVID is not going away just yet. And so there is an opportunity, I think, with this, because we have now accelerated our desire for data. We have accelerated the vehicles in which we evaluate data. So we used to do so many more peer-reviewed layers. The FDA requires so many levels of processing and phases for new drugs. And we are bypassing quite a bit of that. We've reduced the amount of patients needed in the trials, and we have fast-tracked the availability of this data. Now, whether or not that's a good thing for things like COVID, where viruses change and mutate very quickly, we'll see. because we've seen a lot of noise from the FDA with respect to things like hydroxychloroquine, right? For a while there, that was everybody's, hot button drug, and people were hoarding it, and it turns out it's crap. It doesn't really work for COVID. And so, I think we have to be careful that we don't get caught up in the current hysteria, but I think it's really important to recognize that it doesn't take all day to get this data. And so the promise of COVID is that we can generate data faster. I think as a community, Black people are more willing now than ever to participate in trials because there's a light that's been shined on the disparities, not just in cancer, not just in COVID. And, in every facet of healthcare right now, we are seeing the disparity, and we are standing and ready to do something about it. So there's that, right? We've got a force of people who are mobilized to take charge of their health. We have some influence, and we have the spirit of the moment that says, you know what, Black health matters, right? Black lives matter. And now we have industry partners that say, well, we can get you this data faster. We can give you your own records, and we can connect you with clinical trials. We can tell you which ones you're eligible for. So in a state like Pennsylvania, I'm the only Black breast cancer surgeon, Black female breast cancer surgeon, and I don't know if it's a Black man, for 11 million people, right? So if somebody in Pittsburgh or somebody in Erie or somebody in Harrisburg wants to participate in a clinical trial with a Black doctor, how can they get to me? Right. Telemedicine can help that patient get to me. Right. Real world data can help them participate in a trial where they don't have to drive 6 hours and sit in my office and pay a copay and wait and go sit in the office and then do the exam and then do and then, and spend all day. We can do these trials, and we can design them differently. So Sophia, I hope I answered your question, is that there's a lot of promise and opportunity here. And that's why I keep saying we need to reimagine how we're doing clinical trials, and we need a seat at the table where trials are being designed. I had a conversation yesterday with a company that is working on a global ancestry product to help us understand the hereditary mutations and the changes in a gene that aren't at the spots on a gene that cause cancer, if that makes sense. So there are hot spots on genes that we know when they're mutated, they cause cancer. Think about it like a ladder, right? And so like the BRCA gene. Let's say 4 rungs from the top is the spot that we know that causes and predisposes us to cancer. But what if you have a broken ladder somewhere else, spot number 459? What does that change mean, right? And so there are companies that are trying to figure out what that means for people of all ancestries, because all the data's come out of Europe. And so they built their products based on Europeans. And I had a talk with the company and said, well, we're working on this. I said, well, who's at the table? What researchers are you using? Well, what patients did you include? Did you include any advocates? Did you, and I said, so here you are, you're going to design this product, and you're going to place it in communities. You're going to place it in Atlanta. You're going to send it to Compton. You're going to send it to Philly. Say, here you go. Here's a product for you. But none of us were included in the design. I said, what do you think is going to happen with your product? And so now is the opportunity for us to all have a seat at the table, including and especially patients and advocates. This is your moment, to have your voices heard more than ever.
Yeah. So Dr. Mo, I've gotten 3 calls in the past 2 weeks about, because everyone's, a lot of Black people. Yeah. Can you recruit 50, 500, whatever, 100 Black people to be in a COVID trial? And I go back, okay, well, what does that mean? Are you going to stick COVID in my friends? Like, what are you going to do? Inject them with COVID? What is it? No one has explained to me what the process is. But I think, frankly, if somebody called me today and said, would you participate in a COVID trial? I'd be scared shitless. I mean, right? So how does that work, or how do we make that more appealing to people? Because guess what? We are dying from COVID at big numbers, Latinos like Sophia and, Black people like us. So how do we do that? But
I mean, if the word clinical trial, if the very name clinical trial is scaring you off, right?
Right. I hate that word. It sounds like prediction failure, right? I hate that. I
call them treatment enhancement protocols. I'm gonna start a new hashtag. That's my new hashtag. It's mine. You heard it here first. Treatment enhancement protocols, right? Hashtag. And I think that it comes from programs like this. I think it comes from an initiative, and Ricky, this might be new to you, but you don't know it yet, but Touch is going to start a coalition of clinical trial participants, so that we can begin to train each other and to network and partner with each other. When patients are offered clinical trials, when they're considering clinical trials, or when they've been through a clinical trial, they can then take that education that they have received, that information, that experience, this is like lived experience, and now pass it on to others. And so we are going to provide a network and a resource through Touch for patients who are interested in breast cancer clinical trials to be able to reach out and partner with somebody to get some of those fears assuaged, to get some of, some reassurances and get some advice, because you don't know what to expect until you've been there. That first bone marrow biopsy, Sharon, you can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
It's a scary
Yeah.
thing. If you go Google, what did you find? All kinds of scary
Story.
stuff on Google, didn't you?
Yeah, that was very,
Founding
very,
members of
very
our
scary.
coalition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, Sharon? I'm sorry, babe. I missed what you said, Sharon. What'd you say?
Oh, that was, yeah, the bone marrow was extremely scary. I don't think I slept that night. I went to Philly early, but I was terrified. I'm like, can you put me to sleep? Different things. But yeah, it was very scary. But again, I act on my fear. And then with another thing that we haven't spoke about in clinical trials, they do go through a stage and they're not open all the time. So while you sitting thinking about, let's say today, somebody might be out there, it's like, well, I'm thinking about it. Go ahead and have your records accessible to you or whatever clinic you're thinking about. And then you also got to find out if that clinical trial is open, accepting patients at that time. So if we're talking about Black data and African Americans raising that number, we at least can start doing our legwork. So once we, bounce it off a couple of people, and we're like, okay, great. They are still open. They're still accepting patients, but it is a period of time and a stage in order for someone to get into a clinical trial. So I think that's real important as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, Ricky, I'm gonna preview something that's coming really soon, and Sharon is exactly to your point around being ready, about understanding your options in real time. I don't know if anyone's ever gone to clinicaltrials.gov. It's not necessarily the most user-friendly website.
You don't know what you don't have no clue what you're looking at.
It is, I believe it's over 1,800 open breast cancer trials. How are you supposed to make sense of 1,800 trials and find the one that makes sense for you? Again, I think we are asking way too much of patients to get themselves into these trials. And so one of the things we're building is, with all of your medical records, imagine if you can run them through, basically a filter that says, based on your medical records, your histological type, the stage, your genomics report, this is a short list of trials that you may be eligible for. And then, Sheila, to your point, you have a tool now to then go have that conversation with your doctor to say, hey, let's talk about clinical trials, and oh, hey, here are 8 that I think might be good options. What do you think? Instead of, putting all of the onus on the doctor to say yes, no, be the arbiter of if that's a decision for you. And so we're building this tool. It's not quite available yet, so don't hold me to it quite yet, but the first step is having all of those records, because that's the thing that's going to power that report and those options.
But there are also many other organizations that have, like Komen has a clinical trial database. The GRASP program has a clinical trial database. But if you don't know where to search for, so I'm not just going to say it's clinical trials. And as a new patient, the onus, I feel, shouldn't be on me. It should be on my doctor, because
what do we know?
I don't know. I didn't know what HER2 positive was. I'm like, well, what's that? Or what's Taxol? I didn't know. Or what's the CT scan? Because before I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had never been sick. Like, it was, I'm floating around like, okay, but, if someone's new coming in, how do they even know to ask for the clinical trial?
Pixie, you said something. Because that.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because that is so true. Keep talking.
Yeah. So how do you even know, especially as a Black woman? I didn't even know Black women got breast cancer until my mom was diagnosed. And like I said, you see the commercials, and I didn't see Black women that looked like me. I didn't know what metastatic was. I didn't know metastatic was stage 4. So it's up to I think it's still, especially someone's newly diagnosed, it's up to the doctor to say, hey, this is what we have, this is on the table, this is, this is the type of cancer you have, or, okay, maybe you do qualify, because clinical trials should be a standard of care. It wasn't my last resort, my doctor gave me the option to go back on Taxol, Taxotere, and I said, okay, let's try the clinical trial. And, you knew what she was talking about, because 2 years later, it's still working. So it's a lot of work, but I'm thinking, 5 to 15 years down the road, someone will use this drug just like, all the other drugs that come out. And my feeling is, if you're recruiting, we're the ones that are going to be using this medicine too. Why aren't we a part of the process,
Right. Why aren't we part of the education process?
I love that.
I kind of look, I'm sorry. And to your point, Sheila, I know TNBC Foundation also has a clinical trial just for TNBC, but I kind of equate everything to buying shoes. Okay, you know that, right? Pink shoes specifically. Right?
Yeah, we seen your pink boots.
I know, my pink boots. But literally, I want to go to like Nordstrom.com, put in my size, put in pink, right? And then get all the shoes that are right for me. Like, that's the best part of shopping online. Like, I don't even like to shop for shoes in stores anymore, because you have to wait. Do they have your size? But I know that when the pictures come up, I can buy those shoes because they're in my size and they fit me and they're the color I want or whatever, right? So it's almost like we need that. We need to be able to go somewhere and say, this is who I am, and this is what I need. But frankly, even then, to have a choice, I remember my doctor saying, would you rather do this or this? We don't know, so it's almost like, help us figure out what's best for us, because we don't know. But there's that delicate balance of doing the work and having someone do it for you.
Right.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying, Ricky, is that, and I hear everybody saying this, is that the medical community, number one, needs to do a better job of educating patients and making them helping them understand what is available to them. But the flip side of that is how much information is too much information, when, as Pixie said, you're just trying to wrap your head around what HER2 even means. And so I think that this is, again, an opportunity for us to begin to educate patients and provide some content for newly diagnosed cancer patients, breast cancer, on what are hormone receptors, how do drug treatments work, what is chemotherapy, and do some really kind of I don't want to say basic in the sense that it's simple, but just not assuming that people know stuff, because you might have a little bit of understanding. You might be a nurse, but if this is your first time facing breast cancer, guess what? You're a patient. I tell my patients who are doctors and nurses, you're on this side of the table, you're a patient now. And I'm not going to take for granted that you understand everything. And so I think providing a lot of that foundational education to patients will be helpful, so that they can then go to make that jump to understanding what a clinical trial might do for them. But, a lot of the doctors themselves are not as informed about what trials are available. So there's a lot of work to be done to get doctors in community hospitals to educate their patients on trials that they're not aware of, because they may not be offered in their institution. It could be offered in California somewhere. So as a community doc in Pennsylvania going to educate a patient about a trial in California that they're not participating in? Is that a reasonable expectation? I don't know. But is it important and essential to, I had a patient yesterday who said, well, she had recurrent breast cancer. And she said, are there any trials that I'm eligible for? I said, well, let's look together. And we pulled up her chair and we went to clinicaltrials.gov and we put in, and it very much is like what you said, Ricky, we put in some characteristics, the types of trial we were looking for, the type of disease that she had, and we went through the list. And it is possible to do that, but it's not easy. It's not user-friendly to do that on clinicaltrials.gov. And so I think even just the willingness to sit down and look at the trials that are available with a patient is something that every doctor needs to be willing to do. So it sounds like education all around, education is something that's super important. I wonder if you guys have a few minutes to go through some myths. And let's do some round robin and go through some myths about clinical trials. So number one, because I think I want people who are watching or will watch this to understand, so true or false, you will get inferior care in a clinical trial. And I heard everybody say that is just not
false.
true.
You get better care.
better care in clinical
Better
trials.
care.
So,
Better
Better
care.
care.
Much
A
better.
lot better. A lot better.
And you get
Yep.
free lunch.
And you get
Mhm.
free lunch.
I didn't get that, Sheila. I did not get free lunch. I did get a free parking ticket.
Free parking.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I
We'll
get free
take it.
lunch. I'm sorry.
Okay, here's a myth. People in clinical trials are treated like guinea pigs.
No.
No.
Tell me more. For all the but Tuskegee people who are watching right now, all the but Henrietta Lacks people watching right now, tell me more.
I have Maryland Medicaid, and Medicaid isn't going to allow me to participate in a drug trial. They told me I have to go to wherever they send me. True or false?
False.
True.
No.
I was gonna say.
False.
They have no control over. Are you paying for a clinical trial? Is your insurance company involved in any way in a clinical trial?
To some degree.
It depends. It depends. Yeah.
Depends on the trial. It
depends.
does.
Right.
Depends on the
It
trial.
depends.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, it depends on the trial.
It could be an
Okay.
exercise
So another thing to
trial.
educate on, another thing that we have to educate on, another thing you have
Right.
to understand about the process, who's going to pay for it. And I think some trials are paid for and they give you a lot of stuff, but like Sharon paid for herself to fly to California. And that probably wasn't right. I mean, that's probably one you don't want to be in if you can help it. I mean, Sharon, you ended up in
Right.
a place closer to home, but still, I think that's another
Yeah.
area of opportunity to think about or
It is. And it's leverage for us as organizations, as advocacy groups, because we know and everybody knows that our participation in trials is vital and it is essential. And therefore, if the financial obligation to participate is the barrier, guess what? These companies are making billions of dollars. Cancer is a billion-dollar industry, right? You know, and I'm a doctor, maybe I'm not supposed to say these things, but it's a billion-dollar industry and they need to cough it up. If they want you to participate, they need to find a way for you to participate that makes it not prohibitive to do so. And we have some power, we can leverage that. And that's something that as we start to put together lists of demands and things that we want and promises and pledges, and I love what we're doing with that and holding them accountable like Tiger Lily's pledge, inclusion pledge. Part of that means putting dollars, right? Not just Black Lives Matter signs on the door and on the websites, right? But if they matter, they're going to have to put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. You should get a free dinner too, not just a free lunch.
But I like my little hamburgers.
All right. How about this one? Clinical trials are a last resort when there's no other treatment option left. True or false?
Absolutely not. False.
False.
I'm early stage. I've been in clinical trials for 4 years. So that's false.
True or false? You have to have cancer to participate in the clinical trial.
That's
False.
false.
Depending on which clinical trial.
False,
False.
right. There are trials that are prevention trials where you don't have to have cancer. There are trials that, you know, are questionnaires even, family members. I think there was a huge trial, the Black Women's Health trial a while back that was asking the sisters of patients with breast cancer for information. How are you doing in your family with this? How are, you know, what are you telling your family about this? What do your kids understand about this? What are your health habits like? How often are you exercising? There's all sorts of trials, and they're not just drug trials. There are technology trials. There are surgical trials. There are prevention trials, nutrition trials. And so I think, you know, just thinking that you're going to get a drug is false. And there are trials that are not drugs. Right now, there are trials for acupuncture going on, right? Acupuncture, acupressure, herbal medicine, CBD. I think there will be some trials in the future starting to look at that as we learn more information about what CBD can do for things like neuropathy and sleep, you know, not so much as a primary treatment, but for quality of life issues, you know? So there's lots on the horizon that we should maybe keep ourselves open to.
Yeah.
So how does one begin to, Sophia, get involved with with Citizen?
So really, it's the first step is just getting your medical records under your control. You can do this yourself. You can do it with our technology, which, you know, I hope makes it a whole lot easier. But really the first step to participating in all of these things we've talked about for the last hour is getting those records under your control, being empowered with data. knowing what your histological type is. So you can even ask the question, what is it? You need to know what it is before you can ask what it is. And so, I would encourage everyone, and you'll be hearing lots more about us, and we'll be kind of continuing this conversation because there is so much education and so many myths to bust that, this isn't a conversation that's going to stop or go anywhere, but we do want to invite people who could use this tool to sign up. It takes 5 minutes. You enter your phone number, we text you your unique link, you do it right on your phone. The only thing you need is a driver's license or picture ID. This is so that the hospital identifies you and you are indeed who you say you are. In the same way, when you show up for an appointment and you hand your insurance card and your ID, it's the same basic process, just digitized. And then we do the rest, truly. And you have your records within usually 2 weeks.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
Sure thing.
I participated in a blog yesterday, and I was explaining to the individual that was interviewing me the problem I had when I was first diagnosed. When I was 9, I had a mass removed that was 10 centimeters. Okay, 9, and I'm a little bit over that age now. And
just a little bit.
I don't have that medical record. However, when I was diagnosed, I went to every place that I had ever had a biopsy done. And it was in an HMO facility. I won't say the name of the organization. However, because it was one day over the period on how long they keep your medical records, we couldn't get them. And then when I had to go back 6 times to fill out something different for a different medical record that I needed. So by the time, the second time I had to go back, I was furious. How will this help me? How can this data bank help me and people like me who are having trouble and have to go to 3 or 4 different places to get their medical records? And then what happens to the security of those medical records?
Terry, really great questions. And I'll answer the first question and then the security one, which is really the most important thing of all.
Yeah.
How will Citizen help you? You do not need to go back 6 times. That is the last thing you need to be doing when you are sick, newly diagnosed, trying to figure out what's up and down. So first and foremost, you will not go back 6 times. You will not make a single phone call. We have the wonderful Lisa. She has a British accent, and she is your medical record advocate. She is fierce and will push back and advocate on your behalf to the importance of having those medical records. So let us do that advocating for you, first and foremost.
Okay.
Unfortunately, for the biopsy you had when you were 9, we are limited by the records that exist. We can't get records that have been destroyed. And so, while we usually request records 10 years back, in some cases, hospitals will keep them longer. We'll ask for everything they have. That includes going to your warehouse and making photocopies of paper records that you never digitized. We are very thorough, and we make sure that we get everything for you. We are just limited by, we can't unfortunately make things come back that have been destroyed.
So, and I say all that.
But let's talk security, because this is really important.
Yeah.
Look, like I mentioned, I'm a patient, and my security and privacy of my medical condition is incredibly important. And the way that we handle privacy is by really making it the most important thing about this company. We are nothing unless we are the absolute best possible safeguards of your most private information. So we do this with the most advanced encryption and firewalling technology available. The reality is it's also a function of the team building the technology. Our founder has a long track record in health data. He sold his last company to Apple, led health engineering there for many years. He knows privacy. And then lastly, our chief regulatory officer is Devin DeGraw, a world expert in health privacy. She wrote the guidance on HIPAA right of access, the law that lets you get your records. She doesn't let anything get by, let me tell you. She is an accountability machine and is exactly the person you want, making sure what we're building is as absolutely secure as possible.
From the Obama administration.
Yeah, she served in Health and Human Services, top ranking HIPAA regulator under Obama. She's a big deal.
How much does this cost? How much does it cost me as the patient?
Citizen is free to patients. Cancer is expensive. And the last thing we want to be doing is charging you for what is rightfully your information. Citizen is free and will always be free to patients. And so don't for a second think it's a bait and switch. It is free. It costs us close to $1,000 to get your records.
That was my next question.
To digitize them, to create these interactive dashboards, and really to support you. We have, around the clock support, phone, email, chat. We're here for you. We are here to advocate for you and your records. And we take that responsibility really, really seriously. The last point that ties all of this together is that nothing happens to your data without your explicit consent. So this is privacy, this is security, but this is also the reality that this is a tool putting you squarely in control, full stop. You are the captain of your ship and you have the full right and control over what happens to your most private information. When you sign up for Citizen, you are opted into nothing. Unlike most companies that you're automatically opt-in and you have to opt out if you don't want to do something, you sign up and you are sharing nothing until you explicitly say, yes, I want my data to go to this provider. Yes, I want to share my data with my sister or my spouse or whoever you choose, or I want to contribute my data to X research project. Everything is transparent, direct. There is no fine print. You will see all of the fine print right everywhere. We don't hide things. And so really, I encourage people to check it out, try it on for size. And then if you decide, you know what, hey, Citizen isn't for me, you have the right to destroy every last byte of data.
And how would that be done? If I decide that, I have this is a twofold question. If you guys have all my information. How am I notified that I qualify for a trial? That's the first part. And then who determines if I join this trial? Does Citizen determine it, or or you ask me, or how does that work?
Yeah, and this is a good place, Dr. Mo, for you to chime in. We are a technology company. We are not providers. The decision of what trial is right for you is a conversation between you and your oncologist. Our goal is to make that conversation happen more frequently, especially for women whose doctors may not be so proactive about making that option available, and to give you an empowering tool to say, hey, let's talk about these 8. Let's not talk about clinical trials in general. It's, hey, what do you think of these 8 immunotherapy trials, these 4 radiology trials, this observational? And it's a helpful tool for both your doctor and yourself, with the ultimate goal of deciding what's right for you. But we are a technology company. We are not providers. And I think that's really important to clarify.
I think it's super important. And it's super important for a couple of reasons, because one, this company doesn't help patients understand what to do with their data. And I think that's where there's room for collaboration and partnership with clinicians, because the bridge between data and bench and patient is the doctor. And so, making sure that there is some forward-facing education to clinicians, to doctors about the trials, about Citizen, because if you give your doctor, if the patient gives me a website, says, here, all my stuff's on here.
Yeah.
Well, like, what's this?
What do I do with this? And what is this? And how do I utilize this, right? And they're going to give it to their medical assistant. Their medical assistant will say, what do I do with this? And how do I analyze this? And are they going to download 3,000 pages of your data? No.
Right.
And so, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I guess my question or my confusion is, how am I as a patient linked to these trials? Like, what determines, you have all my information. Is it a computer program that determines, oh, well, Miss Wade, you would be good for this trial, but not that trial.
Right.
Yeah,
It's the trial eligibility, criteria. So
Correct.
every trial has eligibility criteria. And so what this does is when you go to that clinicaltrial.gov website, it gives you a laundry list of inclusion and exclusion criteria. And so what this company is doing is taking your information. They're going to give you like a face sheet, a status sheet, and helping you to see where you match with the inclusion criteria for trials. And then you say, okay, well, it looks like I may have matched with these 6 trials. You go to your doctor and say, it looks like I'm a match for these trials. How do I choose? How do I get involved? Or they may also provide you with some direct links to those institutions that are offering the trials, because they may not be offered where you live. They could be offered somewhere else. So then giving you that information at your fingertips gives you the ability to call that trial coordinator and say, I'm in Philadelphia, but there's a trial in Ohio. How can I get involved with this? Because it looks like I may be a match based on the eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So that's where the power comes in.
Kind of like Match.com.
Sort of.
Just with
That's a good way of putting it.
I like it. Swipe left, swipe right. Okay.
yes.
Not like Match.com from my personal experience. I hope it's not like Match.com.
You're finding your trial cutie.
I think that in all seriousness, it sounds amazing. It's I can remember Allison being so, she, like Ricky said, her doctors are at Yale, and she's very intelligent. Like, she must be like smart times 100 million.
Right.
And she couldn't go through the logistics of filling out the paperwork for a clinical trial.
It was crazy.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of paperwork. It is really.
She wasn't feeling well. She was scared. She'd just come off another drug that wasn't working. She's metastatic TNBC. It's no joke. So we appreciate this. And so
and the informed consent process itself is not it's not an easy one.
They showed that document was like 30 pages or something they have to sign on.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're like,
And if anything changed, they have to amend it, and that's more paper. It's just not like one page thrown in there. They may go over the whole series again. So
So, but it's stuff that we have to do. And I say this every time: Black breast cancer is a different disease, and until we understand our physiology, we are not gonna save our lives. And we are, the mortality rates are just crazy. The numbers suck, and we have to fix it. So we have to participate in science. We have to understand it. And so, I'm gonna get in the trial just because I want to be a part of it. I'm gonna get in the Morehouse because I want people to learn, from whatever we need to learn. We have to learn about our bodies, because we can't let our babies get this disease. We just can't.
You know what, Ricky? As a child of someone, my mother had ovarian cancer 29, my grandmother had breast cancer twice. Shoot, I want to be in a trial, right? And be able to write a prevention trial. There are trials that I can participate in, just as a daughter of a woman who had a disease that's less than 1% of the population, exceedingly rare. And so I think the opportunity is there for us. I do want to commend Citizen for recognizing the need to partner with advocacy groups and to partner with patients, because again, when things are designed for us, you'd never see a group of Black researchers design something for Ashkenazi Jews and then drop it in their community. Here, we designed this for you, right? It's unheard of. You'd never see that. But every day in research, every day in trials, we see groups of people who don't look like us, who design trial for us, but then have not taken us into consideration, and then the accrual is abysmally low and the data is insufficient, and they wonder why. And so partnering with advocacy groups, with patients on the front end, with Black doctors and clinicians, I think is so it's so important, because someone has to help patients make sense of this at a time when they're just trying to wrap their heads around their very diagnosis even.
Right.
And so you could get a printout of 8 different trials or 10 different trials, but who do you talk to and who do you trust? And making sure that you have partnered with some trusted advisors for patients, I think is a huge service and a benefit that you guys are already looking into, so that if you ask your community doctor and they have no idea and they're not going to go to the Citizen website and they're too busy and they got their hand on the doorknob, that there's somebody that they can call who's affiliated with Citizen, or affiliated with the advocacy groups who can begin to help patients. And so making those paths a little bit easier to navigate, because giving you all your data is only one step, but helping you to manage and utilize that data in effective ways is the next step that you guys are already considering. And so I think it's just—
And we can't do that without your help and your partnership, and we're so we're for that.
Yeah, and we're all on the website. Our stories are all on the Citizen website. We're all like trying to encourage people and kind of read our stories. When you read these ladies' stories, you'll be like, wow, they're badass. And
so I'm not on there yet. I'm gonna find a way to get on there. I'm gonna get on there as I'm a deputy breastie or something.
Right. So yeah, is Black Data Matters, and Ricky and Dr. Mo and Sharon and Sheila, would you say that any African-American female or male who's interested or whose family has a history of breast cancer can go on to citizen.com and sign up?
Yep. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go to the website and do it. It takes 5 minutes.
I'll say this. It doesn't even have to be breast cancer, even though that's the scope of this conversation, right? But there are so many of us with other conditions and other, you could be perfectly healthy and still want access to all your medical records and have that at your fingertips. And so, as it pertains to cancer, absolutely important, but for diseases like MS, for diseases, for any type of cancer, for sure. But for people who are unaffected, this is something that is for them also, because it finally gives a patient a sense of autonomy, right? And some agency, meaning it's not just happening to you, but you don't have to go to medical records and then wait, and get the envelope, and then you got this envelope full of stuff and it's 50 million pages and you're like trying to sort through it and figure out what's relevant. There's a system that can do that for you, and that can sort of put you in the driver's seat of your own information. And that is very important to a patient, any patient, me as a patient. Having access to my records at my fingertip and being able to give them to the clinicians that I choose or do what I choose to do with it is power. It's powerful.
Yeah. And I think this is like this would be a worry that patients don't have to worry about.
Yes.
Okay, I put all my information into Citizen. Okay, I'm done with that. Now I can worry about the treatment process and things of that nature. Right. But I also think that, we as advocates go into our churches, go into our barbershops, we need to meet people where they are. I don't know if Sophia has or Citizen has a fact sheet or whatever, and maybe do a PSA not now because of COVID, but can't do anything. But maybe do, even to community hospitals, say, hey, and introduce it to community when we can, of course, and just say, hey, and if you don't feel comfortable, or ask your doctor about, or introduce it to your doctor, because Monday I'm gonna introduce it to my doctor. I'm gonna be like, this is Citizen.
Oh yeah.
Anything I do, I introduce it to my doctor first.
And you know what?
My doctor called me when she got the request, and she's like, what is this? This is awesome. I want to with the F word. She said, this is awesome. And so I know she's recommending it. She thought this was the coolest thing. She's a great, Black doctor. They've been my doctor, since I've been here. But she's like, oh my God, this is like an amazing thing, because she spends a lot of time in her office getting records for people, or like, having to deal with the other side of us calling in, right? So, so it's efficient for doctors as well. And Dr. Mo, think about what, the time your office spends, it takes away a resource that they have to, spend money on, so they can spend more time with you as a patient. So
it does. It helps in the second opinion and second consultation process also. I see a lot of patients with second opinion. Getting those records, my medical assistant spends a lot of time calling and getting and faxing and trying to access these records. And it does streamline that process. But Sheila, you said something important and powerful, which is that if we go into these places, churches, you girl, you're dropping them bombs a day, that fire, bringing it. But imagine, going into the Links meeting, right? So Ricky, now you got a PSA. You're at the national conference, well, I guess the virtual conference for the Links, for Alpha Kappa Alpha, for, the American Baptist Association, and having a Black doctor say, listen, you can have access.
The Deltas.
Yeah.
The Deltas, you got that right. Come on now.
No, we want black
Absolutely.
everywhere. We
You
want
know,
everywhere.
but having folks who look like us be
Yeah.
able to speak to the power of having this data, and then on the clinical side of things, being able to educate community hospitals, providers, you know, academics, whomever, about why this matters and why it matters to Black women, especially with respect to breast cancer, is where we need to go with this. And I think you're giving citizens. Sophia's jotting down stuff. I see that. I see you over there. She's like typing furiously. Partner with church groups. Partner with local doctors. Because this is where we have to go in order to get
yes.
If people are asking in the chat for the link, and I think you put it in there, Sophia, but it's Citizen with 2 I's. Citizen with 2 I's.
CITT.
Yeah, CII.
And then dash Black Data Matters, and you'll learn way more about the initiative, why we're doing it.
So
for you to sign up right on there.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer like 3 or 4 months after my aunt was diagnosed. And when I tell you, she went to every appointment. She has a binder this thick of all of her medical records. And I'm thinking, I don't even know where my car keys are. I can't imagine. She's like, Terry, you got to keep all your records together, and then boom, here's Citizen.
So it's great.
And like Dr. Mo said, it's not just about breast cancer. This could, you don't have to be diagnosed with breast cancer. You could participate in the trial that helps someone with breast cancer or some other disease.
Yeah, get your family. So
help.
Thank you, Sophia, for letting us be a part of it.
No, are you kidding? Thank you, Ricky.
Yeah, we're so happy to partner and launch this because it's so important. So we're gonna shout it from the rooftop. Sharon, what's up, babe?
Okay, just before we sign off or whatever, if anyone looking for Shantae is still with us, but she's in a clinical trial as well as active treatment, and that's the only reason she's not present today, because she's at Johns Hopkins. So I'm sure she's watching, but that's the only reason she's not here.
That's right. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, because she gets
breasty
love. We're sending her breasty love when she gets her
breasty love.
Breasty love. Yeah.
And our platelets was up today, so
I know, isn't that great?
Prayer works.
Yeah,
Yes,
prayer
it does.
works.
Yes, it does.
Up. Yeah. I know.
So action items, next steps. What do we want people to take away from here? And then what are we taking away and doing next? And what is Citizen doing next, Sophia? So let's start with our viewers. What do we want our viewers to take away and do after this conversation? And then when's the next conversation? Let's put some connectivity to it.
Sure. We want them to go check out the site. Go check
out the site. Yep.
Read our blogs, read our stories. If you have questions, our info's in the chat. Email us. We'll connect you. Email Sophia, whatever you want to talk to us and answer questions. And then if we have a lot of good questions, we'll come back and do another Zoom and talk about it again and try to address the questions live. And we're all a resource. We're all on social media, but we're happy to kind of facilitate a conversation if you want us to help you. And but check it out. I mean, it's worth checking it out. Show it to your doctor. Show it to your family. Check it out. And I think you'll be like, wow, I should have done this years ago. I wish we had this years ago.
Sheila, what do you want people to take away from this?
Just that, like Ricky said, just to go on a website. If it's not for you, if it's not a great fit for you, then it's not a great fit for you. But I just think this is an important step into something that you just don't have to worry about. After living with metastatic for 10 years, I don't want to worry about what my records are or what CT scan, or just in case my doctor, I told her if she move, I'm moving with her, but just in case she retires or whatever, my records are still there from, everywhere, even, from the military. So, just go on a website, and I'm gonna tell you, if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be here. And I believe in it. So, and I wish this system was around when my mom passed away, because she passed away in 2004. I still to this day don't know what type of breast cancer she had, because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know there were all these subtypes of breast cancer. So I didn't know what right questions to ask. So maybe my daughter also can benefit from this if, God forbid, hey, she'll have my records, and she'll have everything, to just in case, so.
And know what worked for you or not, too, in your
Right.
records. How cool,
Right.
how awesome is that, right?
And I just say, trust the process.
Right.
Awesome.
And it's free. It doesn't
It
cost
is
you.
free.
It's free.
It doesn't cost you anything. And they go and do all the work for you.
It's pretty cool.
You now with this new age, you have to pay for your medical records. I remember back in the day, 20 years ago, you could say, oh, well, this patient has Medicaid. We can't charge them for their medical records. That no longer is the case. If you want a pap smear, if you want a blood test result, you will be paying for that result. And this is free. Takes 5 minutes, right, Rick?
Yep, 5 minutes. It's awesome.
Sharon, what do you want people to take away from this?
Action. Have a plan, even for a second opinion. As I stated, you're not getting into these hospitals if you're missing one piece of paper. You're not even getting an appointment. So I would say, piggyback on what everyone else is saying, at least have your records in one place where if someone want them, you can log in, they can see, so that, that's what I'm saying. And take action, have a conversation. As Ricky said, we are all on social media, very approachable. So it's easy to, have a conversation. I think I'm gonna follow in Ricky's shoes and see, can I get in a third when my second clinical trial finishes?
Yeah.
See, can I get in a third one?
Yeah.
So take action.
Yeah.
I love that. I think I want people to, those who are watching, to at least share this with one other person. It's the middle of the day on a Friday and everybody's a little bit busy, but I'm going to ask the people who are watching and each of us that we would share this information, because I think the discussion's been so candid and really helpful. Like, people are going to get a lot out of this. So I'm asking people who are watching to share it. I do think you should go to the Citizen website. I think you should check it out, get some information, come back with your questions. I think also I want us to start having these tough conversations. I didn't know what my mother died from till I was almost 29, and she died at 29 years old, right? And there are these uncomfortable conversations that we don't like to have with our family members, and we need to start having these. And this is a great way to begin having some of those uncomfortable conversations about our health, our history, right? And so I want people to take that away as well. Like, it's time to stop hiding. It's time to start talking about what's going on in our families and our health and our health. And this is a great tool to do that. Sophia, what you got?
There's so much. I think, first of all, there's a gratitude for the opportunity to tackle this problem together with you. We want to bring tools and access. We're here to listen. We're here to learn, and most importantly, make sure that the technology we build actually stands a chance at tackling this terrible problem. That's education. That's your hard questions, candid conversations. So really, I hope this is the beginning of many to come. In the meantime, we are available to you. I will put my personal email and cell phone number in the chat. Text, call, email me. I'm happy to connect. And in the meantime, I hope that we can make everything just a little bit easier. Cancer is hard enough. Getting your records really shouldn't be one of those things. Right. And then in the future, there's so much we can do together. And I think we have to stay grounded and committed, but really excited about the impact that we're going to have together. So thank you all. I'm touched and
I have a challenge.
Highlight of the week.
I have a challenge for everyone who's following me, my family, my extended breasty family. In celebration of my rebirth day, I am challenging everyone to log on to Citizen, see what they're about, and let's move forward in Black Data Matters. Black breast cancer matters. And we cannot lose another person to this. We just can't.
Check your breasts. Check your breasts that you love. We know you have a pair. We'll remind you every month. Follow me on Twitter.
Check your chest, too. Check your chest. Hashtag check your chest.
Check your chest, but you got to check them. And everybody in your family. Get your baby girls to be checking it, when they hit puberty. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you so much. I love you, love Sophia. I
All
love you.
right.
Guys,
Thank
Bye.
you.
Time.
you
Keep
well.
Next Wednesday at 6 o'clock on blackdoctor.org. The doctor's in.
That's right. Wednesday, 6 p.m. We'll see you there.
Be there.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.